Indranil, why should I give you my money?
That depends. Is there a reason that you want to? Hopefully I have something that you want.
Good answer, but I don't know if it's good enough. We'll go into that on this episode. Welcome to another episode of Horses with Horns. I'm Nicholas.
And I'm Indranil.
And today's episode is titled, Why Should I Give You My Money? Indranil. Why should I give you my money?
What type of money?
Green money. Real money.
But for what?
If I am your customer and you are the business owner, you've started a product or a service company, why should I bother with you? Give you my money.
It's a good question. I've done a little bit of sales. I was a salesperson for about a year, kind of splitting time between actual on the phone selling and kind of some market launching. I will say that we're going to hear from somebody in this episode later on that is way more experienced with this than me, so don't worry.
And me.
Yeah. I think one of the best places to start, and one of the things that I learned while being a salesperson, is that people will give you money for some really weird reasons, where sometimes it's not even related to the product or service. Like where I was a salesperson, people gave me money because they liked our founder. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that was enough. They're just like, hey, I love your founder. I love the product. So I'll try it. I'll just give it a shot.
Yeah.
That may not always be the case.
Well, I think if I had to come up with one answer to that question, my answer would be, if you ask me, why should I give you my money? My answer to you would be, because I care about you and because that makes you trust me. I think no matter what you sell, no matter what business you're in, whether you open a software company or a bank or a laundromat, ultimately your customers trust you with quality service and a quality product, and they trust you as the solution to their problem.
That's true. I mean, I think trust is probably one of the biggest parts of a business and of selling in general. And I think once you find your early adopters, it is really working on building that trust with them and having them help you sell as well.
Yeah, for sure. So in this overall question of giving you money, because really that's what it is. When I think of the way that most people react, we all get calls on the phone about a bunch of services, our car insurance even. Some are even robocalls, automated.
A lot of them.
Most of them, I think. So most people are already in an attitude of no, right? A lot of people hang up. There's the whole scam likely on the phone when someone calls you, and most people are I think it's important for business owners, entrepreneurs, people that are just starting their company to realize that even people that, once you sit down and you explain to them why this is valuable and all that, I think even those people at first, when you're a stranger, when they don't trust you yet, you should always go into a conversation with a potential customer assuming they don't want to give you their money. They're not neutral about it. They're very much defined on the answer no. So it is, your job to figure out how to change that into a yes. But drilling down into something more specific, how do you even, begin to analyze or decide who specifically your customers will be?
Yeah. So, actually, I think that is probably the place that I would start. I feel like quite often changing a no to a yes it's difficult, and it's probably not your best starting point. I actually think it is that drilling down and finding who is more likely to say yes and whose problems can you actually even solve. That is more relevant than convincing someone that you're not at all relevant to.
That is true. I think the likelihood of knowing who you can be a solution to, I think ultimately goes back to something that has been said a lot already, build a business and become your own customer. I think there's
Dog
a lot
food
of
in the
value.
product, right?
Or service,
Yeah.
or really anything, build a business that you would like someone else to build. It's not really about you doing it necessarily, but even if someone else did it, that you would buy it from that someone else.
Like it's a problem that you have and care about.
Exactly. Because once you identify that problem, at least you have the validation that there's one customer that will buy it, which is you. Now, you've reduced the problem of figuring out who is my customer to say, well, who is someone like me? For instance, if you are, by the way, if there's anyone out there that knows this, I haven't Googled this, but often I find myself driving, wife next to me, baby a lot of times sleeping in the car seat. And when she's sleeping, we would rather go to a drive-through restaurant to not wake her up. But I don't know if there's a good way to search for drive-through restaurants. I don't know if Google Maps has it.
You tried like Yelp, Foursquare, any of those?
No, but if there is, if there's a quick way to say, hey, show me the nearest drive-through place to where I'm driving right now, so that's a problem that I'm facing. That's something that I recognize very well. So I know that if someone invented an app where you can see exclusively drive-through restaurants, that is valuable to me. I would pay for that a set amount. But also when I start kind of peeling the onion and seeing, well, why would I buy it? Well, I drive. I have a car. I drive often. I have a baby of sleeping age in the middle of the day at kind of, not fully, but kind of random times. And I'd rather not wake her up just because I want to go eat. So that, that's a okay segmentation, parents of, with children less than 3 years old. I don't know. Maybe that,
So kind of like that concept of either like personas or at least identifying the group that you're solving the problem for, slightly different than parents and drive-through restaurants. But, back when I was selling stuff, it was software. It was a SaaS company. We were selling staffing products to startups. And, we had our targeting. We knew that our user group was going to be Series B and C companies. So kind of mid-sized startups. They found their way, but they're not huge. And I think that was also actually really important because when we started to sell to really, really big companies, we found that we didn't meet their needs all that well, where we were more targeted to smaller companies. But that's that learning that came from trying to sell.
For instance, when we started this podcast, we said, hey, let's create content about starting a business, not once you already have all those business learnings, but even earlier. And we kind of visualize someone that is often thinking about, what if I start a business? What if I start a business? And this podcast becoming some type of resource to that, and that's the profile that we kind of design for all this content. Once we put a few episodes out there, who knows? It might be a complete different crowd, who knows?
We'll rely on you to let us know.
Yes, please. But the other thing, is I think when you choose your customers, you also should choose based on knowing not just how they are, who they are, and also being able to reach out to them. I think the component of, as I said earlier, right, the trust component, why would someone trust you? Why would someone get in touch with you about this problem? So it is important to consider also what your network is, and so when you think of a company so for instance, I know a few other parents with children in the same age range. I don't know that many, right? And just because I'm a parent, not to some extent, but just because I'm a parent of a 1-year-old baby, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily connected with a bunch of other ones. But I do know a few. And getting started with those few is good enough. Validate the problem. Just say, hey, do you ever go through this problem? Are you ever sitting in the car, baby sleeping in the back, and you're hungry and you're looking for a drive-through, but you don't even know which direction to drive? instantly.
So, if you only have that small group, how do you know if you want to build something for them though? Like what's a big enough group to understand that?
I don't know. I don't know if there's a statistically sound number that I can say, once you amount this number of responses or people that are willing to try or validate your idea, you should build a business and, you should jump on it full time. I don't know. But I do know that the more the better. But I do also know that the level of commitment in those initial connections is also important, right? Because as you start to build the service, the solution, the product to this problem, to this particular audience of people, you'll need people that are quote unquote patient with you and that are willing to try again and again, give you feedback, right? So I think, that I think is a good moment to kind of transition into the other question of like what even matters to your customers.
Yeah, and I think Paul Graham and Y Combinator talk about that a lot, about your initial user group isn't actually that large. It is probably just find those 2 or 3 people or companies that really care about what you're doing. They need it urgently, and they'll use it, even if it's a terrible product, terrible start, which it probably will be. So it's just find that small group of people who really care, and then you can go from there.
This podcast actually has, I think, a really good example of that. We for the first few episodes, without us having published any episodes yet, we were able to get people with experience, really, really cool career experience, to contribute with their opinions and their content and their ideas and learnings, without necessarily seeing the material, concrete version of what the podcast is. So at some point, you have to find those people that are willing to give it a chance because they trust you and because you like them, they like you. And it will be easier, for this podcast to ask of other people to contribute once you build that reputation and basically using the early adapters of your podcast, our podcast, to build upon that. And it's easier for other people to jump on it because now it's a little bit more concrete and they know a little bit more about it and they can trust you based on what you've built.
Right. And yeah, it really is continuing to build that trust and just being consistent and looking to improve. So, like in this podcast, proving value to you is of course something that we're looking to do, and we'll hope to prove that out. But even from the people who have trusted us with their content and their perspective thus far, I think we got there because we've worked with these people before. We just know them. And I think for a lot of products as well, a lot of businesses, services, whatever, your first users are going to be people that already know you. Sometimes you don't have to go out to the general public. It is just people that you've already built that trust with.
Yeah. And it is important that, especially with those initial users, it's very important that you listen to them. I don't know if this is a very good example or the only one. This is the one that comes to my head. Steve Jobs, right? When you think of someone like that revolutionized the idea of the personal computer, iPod, iPhone, and all of that. If you ask someone before smartphones if they needed one, probably a lot of people would have said no.
They wouldn't even have known that it was an option.
Exactly, right? So there's moments, there's particular people in particular moments when they really visualize a need that just about everybody is ignoring. And, they present it to the market because they're convinced that it's going to work. But for the most part, especially when you get these first users that are willing to engage with you in this early stage of your journey, I think it is important that you listen to them. It's easier to fall back on, well, I thought about this, I have the idea, and really get committed with what you originally thought of. But you have to listen, because the problem might be something that you think is going one way, but it's really going a total different way.
Right. I think one of the important things that I've certainly been taught for product design and just like any ideas is, while building for yourself is really useful, and like if you have a really deep problem that you need to fix for yourself, do it. But just because you're facing the problem doesn't mean everyone's facing the same problem. So like, like it might not be broad enough or a deep enough problem that you can make a full business out of it.
Right. It's important that you test it, and it's important that you listen to feedback, especially because it's going to give you a better, more defined problem. And I think it's going to help you, kind of going into a different question, it's going to help you differentiate yourself from your competitors, and ultimately almost give you a path to a problem that no one else is working on. Indranil, what do you think about competitors, and do you think it's important to think of them? Is it important to, especially when you're starting a business, when other people have the business and you're just thinking of starting one, how do you manage that?
Surface level hot take. I kind of don't care. I think, okay, so it is obviously important to differentiate. You should think about whatever unique angle you have. You should think about, can I do something different? And it might be small. It might be, can I do something quicker or cheaper than the competitors? It doesn't have to be something huge. You probably do have to do something a little different. I think where I'm trying to go with this is that it can be a little overblown to think, oh, I have to be radically different. This has to be something that nobody's ever seen before. And I actually think that can make it harder to sell sometimes, where it's so different people don't even understand it.
Yeah. I think it has to be unique. The solution that you're providing has to be unique, yet not brand new. So if you are providing something that is similar to what another company is already doing, or is doing exactly the same, well, first of all, it kind of validates that the idea is going somewhere because someone else is also working on something similar.
Right. And if they're an existing player, they have users, that means it might even be a little easier to build it out.
Yeah. So, sometimes you need the whole ocean to kind of rise with you, and you need more than just kind of one ship making those waves. So competitors and having them is completely fine. I think being aware of how you're different is important. I've been to a lot of startup pitches, and when I hear them, a good thing that all of them almost talk about is a competitive landscape. Well, they know, okay, this is something that we have that all these other companies don't have, and don't necessarily use this unique feature to say that's why everyone should stop using them and just use us. I think it's something saying like, hey, if you care about this feature, you should come to us. This is important to you. We have it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's always foolish to think that you don't have any competitors. In fact, if you don't have any competitors now, you probably will if you're building something that is worthwhile. The other thing that I just found, somebody actually just called me on Friday asking about procurement services. Like they wanted to help my current company with finding software solutions for cheaper. And I'd actually just signed with a different company. And he started walking me through the differences between the products anyway, and there are some unique angles to it, but ultimately I think it is kind of what you're saying, that there will be a set of features that make one product better suited to certain users. It doesn't have to be radically different. It's just like this set of features stood out to me. That's why I went with this solution.
If you understand what makes you unique, or the problem that you're solving unique, not necessarily the only one, but unique in some ways, it will separate you from competitors, and your market, your audience will understand much more. They will relate to your solution a lot more, and I think it will create a path to not necessarily having to worry about competitors that much. I don't think this doesn't seem to be the case in my experience. Just going cheaper, exactly the same but cheaper, it rarely works. And going back to my early point of saying there's a trust component, you know, especially when you go too cheap, people start not trusting it, not
Walmart
trusting
in
you.
Europe.
Yeah, so probably dropping the price or having figured out a way to do it, to do the same but cheaper, it's probably not enough. If you figure out how to do the same as another business but cheaper, I think it's also important to say, okay, but is it better? Because that's really what is it better for you, right? Someone in particular. That is what is going to win you customers. And I would assume, especially if you're targeting customers that are not being attended to, or they already decided that your competitor is not their solution, and that's why they're not using one at all, that's even better.
Yeah, this is also very software focused, but like I work in FP&A, which is financial planning and analysis. Cheaper for me is it's beneficial. You know, I do work at a startup, so being able to save money is good. But for me to change my FP&A tool right now for something that is exactly the same but cheaper, it's not going to happen. Level of integration with the product it's just too high. Like, you know, if somebody's been using something for a while, it's working for them, and now another solution comes in and the only differentiator is it's cheaper, probably not going to work.
Right. You probably have to be very long-term mindset for that. And, you know, people are, you know, as, like I said earlier, people already stand at a no. You know, why would they make a bet on something that's going to only realize in a long time? You know, as a funny anecdote, once I was interested in buying a laundromat and or starting one, and I thought I think I had just woken up from a nap, and the I had the idea of saying, and I'm gonna name it Soap Pranos, you know, the HBO series, but soap, like detergent soap. And then I Googled the name, and there is another laundromat in New Jersey that is called either Sopranos, and then I thought maybe I'll call it the Sopranos. I don't know, but it, you know, it's just funny, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I let that kind of name say, oh, someone already did it, you know. But if I, you know, and I was thinking, oh, maybe the artwork inside the laundromat can be all reference to the name, to the title. You know, there's plenty of scenes with Tony Sopranos doing laundry in the basement. So, you know, I thought there was a lot of material. But, you know, I don't know about this other laundromat,
Right.
Sopranos, if they utilize the series brand as much. So that could have been something that would have made it unique. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I forgot the name. I think it's Future HQ. Morning Brew just acquired them. But they were talking about a company that I've known about for a little while called, I think it's Rocket Internet. It's a German company that literally just copies other companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they are wildly successful. They've done something like 4 billion in revenue by just literally like copying eBay, copying Uber, and just bringing it to a different country. I'm not saying to do that. I'm not saying that you can do that to that success, but you know, like just because something's out there and something's been done before doesn't mean that you can't find an angle or that you might not be able to make it work.
Yeah, there's plenty to work with. You know, just have to find the right angle at it. And on that note, let's hear from Brett. Brett and I met working together a couple of years ago now. I think 2019 might have been when we met. And he actually went on a journey to start his own company now for a few years. So why don't we take a listen on his take regarding the topic of why should I give you my money?
Hi, I'm Brett Buttacavoli, owner and managing director of Hillmont Group, a boutique staffing company that specializes in artificial intelligence and automation technology. And we are based in Homedale, New Jersey, which is about an hour south of New York in a beautiful rural setting. So what makes us different from our competitors is, uh, staffing in general doesn't exactly have the most, the best name in the, if you're looking for a new business to jump into, a lot of people have negative connotations when they think about it. And we're very cognizant of that. Being specialized allows us to break away from the pack and be more consultative in nature when we're working with our customers. And what does that mean? Being consultative, in my opinion, means that I better understand the problems that my customers are facing. And by looking at a microcosm of the technology market, it allows me to better understand the exact problems that they might be facing, not only in regard to hiring, but to building out a program around this type of technology internally. What are the obstacles that they're up against? And the more that I can speak to them as a peer who understands what they're going through, the more trust and rapport and the deeper connections that I can make with my customers. From a business perspective, this focus and being specialized really leads to a couple things that I want to talk about that I believe give us a real strong advantage. You know, it, One is deeper network connections within this space. Staffing in general relies on strong network connections and having relationships. Being specialized in this segment allows us to, from a geography perspective, cover the entire United States, but focus specifically only on this group that is focusing on these technologies. So we have really deep network connections across the country in this segment, which means that we know, the best people that are capable of using these technologies nationally. And there's great power that comes in that. The expertise through the specialization is what allows for what I was talking about before with, being more consultative with our customers, but, differentiating ourselves even more. We can sit down with a new customer and talk to them a little bit about, as let's say they want to engage us and work on an important search that they're looking for. Let's say it's a leader for a new artificial intelligence project. We can coach them on everything from the job description, titles, salary ranges, more specifically, and through experience, and show them profiles that were hired at specific numbers and ranges. And this allows us to coach our clients to, before we go attack the market, here's what we would recommend that you come in at. Now, not every customer is going to have unlimited budget, and we are going to have to work creatively with them to meet those needs. But by having this specialization, we're more fit to work with them to overcome those obstacles and meet their budgets, etc. What's my advice to other companies or people rather that are looking to build a business? I would suggest that if you're looking to build a business, find an extremely specific problem and work to better solve that problem than everybody else has. And if you're having trouble finding a unique problem, then I would recommend that you take another look at that problem and work to drill down further at it. Meaning you might be looking at too big of a problem. Try and focus on one component of it and then build something around that one specific small problem. Hope that this is helpful, and thanks for having me on.
Brett, thank you so much for sharing your learnings with everybody. Really good stuff. Is there anything that you would like to highlight that Brett just talked about?
Yeah. First, again, thank you. Really, really appreciate your time and all the insight. I'm really glad that I feel like we talked about some of the stuff that Brett did as well. The things that really stand out to me are solving a specific problem, being really specialized, like really understanding the needs of whoever you're going to solve a problem for. And then, of course, Brett, as far as I know, he has like 20 plus years of experience in the thing he's solving. He really knows his stuff. He knows his customer base. So I think with that as well, like, we've both been in the recruiting world. We know that it's a very relationship driven industry. So if you have that much experience, the customers you're working with and the relationships that you build over that time, that really helps you solve the problems of your users.
Yeah. One of the things that he talked about is having this consulting approach to his service. And the more successful engagements that I've had on my consulting company have been when the right things happen for you to come into that conversation as an expert. When you talk to someone and that someone starts saying, well, this is what my reality kind of looks like. And you're almost able to anticipate the problems of this person and say you've done it before, or say, yes, I've seen that before, and you're probably dealing with this other thing here. Those are the conversations that really move forward. You have to be, whether it is services or a product, they have to see you as the solution. They have to see you as, if I go with them, I am in good hands. You have to, the only way to develop trust with someone you've never met is by reliably showing your expertise.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I've had the same problem. I know where you're coming from. And yeah, especially if you have that type of experience of, I've done this. I've seen what you've been working on, and I've solved that problem for years on years. I feel like that makes your sell a little easier.
Yeah, there's this one call that comes to mind. I was talking to this coaching company, career coaching company, and I presented an analytical solution, an analytical platform, ultimately to be able to analyze data in real time and act on sales strategy or financial decisions, and this call happened with someone that I would consider a friend, and of course we have that level of trust where he was able to say, well, great, but what I'm dealing with right now, my problem is this. And I kind of realized that I was selling a much bigger vision of a very specific problem that he was telling me, well, my problem is this specifically, and if we went with what I was proposing, they wouldn't see the solution to their problem today in probably a couple months, but reworking the specs of the project, allows to bring a solution to that problem right away.
Yeah. So because you understood their problem, you were able to do that.
Exactly. And of course, if there's already a pre-built relationship, existing trust between both parties, you can open up a lot easier, saying, well, this is what I'm facing. What do you think? But anyway, so, one of my key takeaways on this episode, why should I give you my money? If I have to answer that in one word, is because you trust me that I'm an expert and that I will bring the solution to your problem. How you justify the expertise and ultimately how you make someone trust you, that's the challenge. But that is the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah. I don't really have much more there. I agree. I think it is just build trust, build your network over time. And, if you have a unique angle to a problem, test it out, see if you can sell it.
Thank you so much for listening to our second episode. See you next time.